Welcome to the Ed Answer Key, the podcast where in the time it takes to complete hall duty and attendance, we embark on an educational adventure for both teachers and families. So whether you're a seasoned educator or a family navigating the school system, buckle up for the Ed Answer Key.
It is incumbent upon teachers when they identify a student, they need the curriculum to stay with high fidelity. They have to have that curriculum so that they can see from the formative or summative assessments where this kid is actually ending up. And where they are, we're going to identify those kids. And we're going to get them to the psychologist, and we're going to get them through the process, which legally we're supposed to do. Because if we don't,
true.
What's going to happen when they move?
No, I agree. And I think we have to protect them, at least in the system that we're in. We communicate to the next level every time. So we always tell the next group about the kids that we have, including the honorary members. But because to some degree, sometimes that happens because parents don't want it. And they can refuse at any time. They can refuse or pull services altogether. But I think that sometimes it's just the teacher matchup. And the teacher has already made their opinion about you. You know, so I feel like that's part of it too, is that those kids are not always in there for academic need or anything else. It's really just to support our peers.
Sad because I'm in a private now, and I will low key talk to parents when they come in and meet with me and say, keep them in public. Like people think he's in a smaller environment, he'll get more support. We don't have sped support. We don't have teachers that are trained in special education processes in the building. We have a person that just oversees the IEP and does the paperwork, but we don't have a special. I said, and I use my old school as example, if you go to that school, you have a sped teacher that is teaching. Kids don't even know who's sped, who's not. You have that person that's teaching right alongside the gen ed person. There's a lot more resource and things. So people think, I'm going to pull them, I'm going to put them in private, they're going to get a better education, even though it's 10 kids in the classroom. No, you're not, because that teacher is not trained to deal with your student, and they're going to continue to fall behind because you got teachers that's never interacted with students who need services. So I sell public schools in that sense, like they're the only ones you're going to get some
for
type of service.
For special ed students, for sure.
Yeah, like some kind, or if your kid's on the spectrum of getting services.
Yeah, fair.
What percentages of teachers do you think have the skill set to teach a student that's been identified with a 504 or an IEP?
Is that without support?
That's a great question.
And what do you mean by without support?
Like without your special ed teacher in the room?
Yeah, in my 25 years, I've had some really great special education teachers I've worked with who have been there for the students and have really helped the students grow. And then I've had some who are pretty lousy and really had no business being in my classroom at all. And so with support, I think the number would be higher.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Without support, the number is going to be a little lower.
Well, and
without good support.
Yeah. And here's another, it's interesting. This has actually come up more recently. It's like my kids versus our kids. Does a general education teacher feel like they're all his or her students? Do they take ownership of all those students, not just by data, but in general? And I think that is where the decision is, do they feel comfortable? Do they feel comfortable without that support? Are they willing to take the modeling of some other, you know what I mean, we learn from the other side. Can they learn from a special ed teacher too? And then apply it. And I've seen some growth. I've been working with the same person for almost 5 years. And I've seen just between the two of us, like I've learned from her, she's learned from me. And I feel like not as much fear to not have support necessarily.
I think the biggest challenge is just the difference in levels with the students.
Right,
We
especially in the
have,
classroom.
here's a student who's way up here, here's a student who's way down here, here's a student who reads 2 levels above where they're supposed to, and here's another one who reads at a 3rd grade level.
Correct.
And I have to teach them the same thing and figure out a way to even that up.
And God forbid you ask them to be moved to like a higher level class.
Right. That doesn't happen. Well, and we haven't even hit on the other side of this. And of course, Rudy, you bringing this up. I mean, not only do we have special education students that we have to serve at the same level, we're also talking about our ENL population, our ELLs who are, I mean, that's just another aspect of life. I mean, and obviously we have several that are combined in both, but in a school system, we have to have teachers who are willing to work with this population. It's like, it doesn't really matter. Like we all have to be comfortable to some degree, but how comfortable, the percentage, would be curious.
My first year teaching, I would still probably say this kid, he wasn't the best student I've had, but he was an excellent reader. He was an excellent writer, one of the smartest kids I've ever had in a classroom. And in the same class was this kid, he did not speak any English at all, and he was in my class. I had these 2
Polar
same
opposite.
individuals in my one class. I'm like, I don't really know what to do here
Right.
as a first year teacher. Not a lot of support that year, by the way.
And so that was your rookie year. So we're talking
was my
like
rookie
25 years ago, right?
Mhm. It was a situation where middle school, I've not worked in a middle school where we haven't just passed them on and I've had more than one administrator tell me, well, the statistics show that failing a kid just is not effective.
I did work in a school where they retained students, and I had a couple of retained students in self-contained, and that was kind of wild, like to think like we're going to do the same thing again and try it the next year. And that led to like 16-year-old like 8th graders, you know, like it's just there's pieces of that social promotion.
Whole nother thing.
Right.
Whole nother thing.
Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of the Ed Answer Key. Your support means the world to us. Be sure to stay in the loop about upcoming topics by downloading our free podcast companion at www.edanswerkey.com. So until next time, class dismissed.